Hey, my name's Jonathan. The question is, I want to grow my business quickly and I want to grow a large business, and this individual's working on this right now. And so they're asking, at what point will it get easier? At what point will you have time? Will I have time to do other things? At what point will the business, in a sense, take off and, in a sense, become its own thing and independent of the owner in some ways? So there is really no answer to this question. Um, what I mean by that is there's no set answer. I I really feel like generally it takes a good 5 years to get a business to a point where you almost breathe a sigh of relief and you say, okay, I'm kind of here now. No, that doesn't mean that at year 3 you're still worried if you're going to make it or anything like that. I've been involved in businesses that at year 1 we knew we were set. We were very confident we were going to make it. But at that point we were still very much the guys doing the work, very much hands on the business, working all the time, couldn't quit thinking about the business at night, didn't really have the backup resources where we could go on vacation or we could take a lot of time off. Didn't really have the infrastructure to grow as fast as we could because we knew how to market. We were confined because we just didn't have enough people yet, and the people that we had didn't have enough knowledge yet. So some of the things that I just said there are things you want to think about in terms of those are problems you've got to solve. So if you want to get the business to the point where you feel like you've arrived, you really have to, as quick as you can from the beginning of the business, start working on some key areas of the business. And until you do these things, you'll never get to the point that you want to be at. So it could be you're there in 3 years or you could be there in 10 years. It all depends on when you start working on those things. If you start working on them in year 1, you're going to be there far faster than if you start working in year 7. So I think that makes sense. So given that, I can't give you an idea of exactly what year this might arrive. But again, my feeling on most businesses is about 5 years. And that's 5 years if you're not financed, meaning you don't have angel or venture money and you're self-financed. Maybe you have a little money from your family, but it's probably going to be a small amount if it came from a family member. So again, point being, if you're doing this on your own, financing this yourself, essentially bootstrapping it, then I would say if you start from the beginning, expect this to take a number of years. And how you get there is right now you've got to be working on employees. You've got to be building them up. No business can ever scale until you have the group of employees, team members around you that have the knowledge to help you scale. Because if it's on you, you'll never scale. You've got to have help. So the first thing you've got to solve is you've got to build the knowledge base into your company. And that knowledge base is made up of the people that help you run that company. And so the longer you wait to start bringing people into your organization that can start learning the ins and outs of how you do business, that can help you, that can bring creative ideas to the table that you've never thought of, that can move the company forward independent of you. You've hired somebody that runs operations and is moving operations ahead while you're over here moving marketing and sales ahead. And you're working on finance, things like that. So you can never grow until you solve that core problem. So your big constraints in the business are money. So you got to solve money problems. You've got to solve people problems. And really those are generally the two biggest. And then within people, that's when you get into solving procedural problems, processes. How are we going to do things? What's the standard operating procedure? When we get a new client, exactly what happens? When we want to go out and get 50 new clients, exactly what do we need to do in the way of marketing and how many pieces need to go out? Where do they go? All of that stuff's got to be learned and then delegated to somebody, or you've got to handle it. And you've essentially got to build it to the point where it's a repeatable thing. So, marketing example, you know that you want to bring in 40 clients, and you know that that means you need to put 4,000 mailing pieces out in the mail, and they need to go to an area that, for example, maybe the homes are 250 to 400,000, but you start to know some of these things about the business so that you can back into the result. What I mean by that is if you know you want 40 people, clients, you know exactly what it takes to go get 40 clients. It takes 4,000 pieces that have to go to this area to people that make about this amount of money. You've got to learn those things to scale the company. And you've got to scale the company to be able to afford the employees that can come into the company and help you. and then you've got to have a period of time that once they come into your company, you've got to train them. I think it takes a good 6 months, if not a year, to really bring key people up to speed. It just takes time. And there's no way to shortcut this. And that's why venture capital is so big. And I'm not promoting it. I'm just, the reason companies go get money is they want to accelerate growth. To accelerate growth, they've got to bring in the people now. They can't wait till a year from now to bring in the people. They got to bring them in today before they need them. They got to start getting them trained, and they need their help to grow. And you can't shortcut the process of teaching your team and having your team grow in their ability and understanding of how your company operates. So, going back to the point, I think the biggest barrier you're going to have to get to this point and to determine how many years this is going to take is how quickly can you get an operations manager? How quickly can you get key people in place answering the phones? How long is it going to take you to find somebody who can help you do the books? How long is it going to take you to find the right guy to go out there and train the crews, to inspect the work, to meet with the clients? How long is it going to take you to find the person that you can absolutely trust to go do estimating that isn't going to underbid the work so that you don't have to do it? When you solve those problems, you solve your growth problem. You're now delegating to other people. The company is moving beyond you. There's a lot of knowledge gained without you. Then once you get to that point, your next thing, and this is why growth is so important, your next jump is you've got to then build redundancy. So you've got a great operations manager, but what if he leaves you? Then you're back in the job for a year while you try to teach the next operations manager. So you need to grow to the point you've got an operations manager, and then who's the guy underneath him that will, as the operation manager moves up, will fill that role. Or if the operation manager leaves so that you don't have to resume that responsibility, who's the guy that can step into his role and at least take over, say, 70% of what he was doing before? Because you can build this wonderful team, but then if any one person leaves, if the whole thing crumbles, you don't really have a real business. That's where redundancy is so important. It'd be like having a lawn mowing crew with one foreman, and if that foreman left, you had to go back and work the crew again because there was nobody else you could fill that spot with. That's the exact same problem you have in the office. You've got to fill the roles, build the knowledge, then you've got to have the redundancy to cover yourself in case something bad happens. When you get to that point, that's when you've built what you're talking about, where you get free, where you can spend the majority of your time out of the office, where you could spend your time growing the company, thinking about the place that you're taking the company next. So that's your goal right now. However many years it takes you to solve that problem is how long it's going to take you to get to that point. When you solve that, you've arrived at exactly what you're trying to accomplish.